This guy murdered his best friend and almost got away with it, but a gas station camera changed everything. Here's how it happened. Every story like this starts the same way, not with hate, not with violence, but with two people who genuinely loved each other. Marcus Webb and Daniel Hayes grew up on the same street in a small town in Ohio. The kind of place where everybody knows your name, where doors stay unlocked, where secrets are supposed to be impossible to keep. They were 7 years old when they met. Marcus moved in 3 houses down from Daniel, and within a week, they were inseparable. Same classroom, same lunch table, same dreams whispered between classes when the teacher wasn't looking. By high school, they were the kind of friends other people envied, not because of what they had, but because of what they built together. Through every heartbreak, every embarrassing moment, every failure, they showed up for each other, no questions asked. College pulled them to different cities, but it didn't pull them apart. They called every week, visited every semester. The distance meant nothing. By the time they were in their late 20s, they'd both moved back to Ohio. Different apartments, same city, and every single Thursday, without fail, they met at the same bar for drinks. That Thursday ritual was sacred. Didn't matter what was happening in their lives. Work stress, relationship problems, bad weeks. None of it canceled Thursday. From the outside, everything looked fine. But underneath that routine, something had quietly started to rot. In 2017, Daniel's parents died in a car accident on a rainy highway outside Columbus. He was devastated, but they left him nearly $2 million. Daniel didn't blow the money, didn't buy a mansion or a sports car. He invested carefully, built a small real estate portfolio, and kept living the same modest life. He was stable, content, building something real, quietly, patiently. Marcus was not. His business had collapsed in 2018. A bad partnership, some poor decisions, in a market that didn't forgive mistakes. He lost everything he'd put in. Then the divorce. His wife left and took half of what little remained. Marcus was 31 years old and starting from zero, except it wasn't zero. It was negative, $180,000 in debt. He didn't tell Daniel exactly how bad it had gotten. Pride does that to people. It lets you drown quietly rather than ask for help loudly. But Daniel noticed. And without making Marcus feel small, without ever saying a word about it, he started helping. $50 here, a few hundred there. Always framed as nothing, always brushed off as easy. Marcus accepted every single time. And every single time, he smiled, said thank you, and felt something he didn't fully understand, yet building quietly inside him. Resentment. Not toward Daniel, not exactly, but toward the situation, toward the gap between their lives, toward the fact that the same world had been so generous to one of them, and so brutal to the other. And somewhere in that resentment, a thought was born. A thought Marcus would never say out loud. A thought he probably tried to push away 100 times before he stopped pushing. In March of 2020, Marcus came to Daniel with a request. He said he needed Daniel to take out a life insurance policy. $2 million and name Marcus as the sole beneficiary. He had an explanation ready. He told Daniel it was for a business deal he was trying to close, that he needed it as collateral for a loan, that it was just paperwork, just a formality. Daniel didn't call a lawyer, didn't ask a second person, didn't Google a single thing about what he was agreeing to. Because this was Marcus, his best friend since the age of 7. You don't fact-check your best friend. Marcus walked out of that apartment with everything he needed. The policy was finalized in April 2020. And then, he waited. April, May, June. The summer came, warm and ordinary. They still met on Thursdays. Marcus still laughed at Daniel's jokes, still asked about his life, still showed up, because the performance had to continue. July, August, September, October, November 14th, 2020. A Saturday night. Cold, quiet. 9:15 p.m., a gas station 2 miles from Daniel's apartment captured a man on its outdoor security camera. He walked in, bought a pair of latex gloves, and a bottle of industrial cleaning solution, paid in cash, walked back out. At 11:43 p.m., a traffic camera 3 blocks from Daniel's apartment recorded a license plate passing through an intersection. It was Marcus's car. He had told police he was in Columbus that night, 2 hours away. The next morning, a neighbor called the police. Daniel's door was slightly open. That wasn't like him. Officers arrived at 8:47 a.m. What they found inside had been arranged to look like a suicide. Detective Sandra Okafor was called to the scene within the hour. She'd been with the department 14 years. She'd walked into rooms like this before, but something about this one wouldn't sit right with her. And she couldn't immediately say what. The apartment was too clean. Not suspicious clean, more like deliberately arranged clean. Like someone had thought very carefully about what a scene was supposed to look like, and then built it. She photographed everything, tagged everything, and when a supervisor suggested closing it as a suicide, she kept the file on her desk, just in case. Priya Hayes got the call at 6 a.m., Daniel's sister. She sat on the edge of her bed for 4 minutes, completely still, before she was able to stand up. She drove 4 hours to Millfield. The whole drive, she kept hearing his voice. 3 days before he died, Daniel had called her to plan their trip to Portugal together. He'd found a hotel he was excited about. He had screenshots ready to show her. You don't research hotels on a Wednesday and take your own life by Saturday. Priya knew her brother, and she was not going to let anyone bury the truth alongside him. The funeral was held on a gray Thursday, the same day of the week they always met for drinks. Marcus gave the eulogy. He spoke about their childhood, about the summers they spent as kids, about what Daniel meant to him and to everyone in that room. People were crying before he even finished. Priya stood at the back. She watched Marcus cry, watched him accept condolences, watched people hug him, and felt, cold and certain and completely unable to explain it, that something was deeply wrong. She introduced herself to Detective Okafor after the service, told her she didn't believe it was a suicide. Okafor gave her a card and said, "Call me if you find anything." 6 weeks later, Marcus filed the life insurance claim. $2 million. It was processed without issue. The death was ruled a suicide. The policy was legitimate. Marcus was the named beneficiary. The company had no reason to question it. By January 2021, the money was in his account. He paid off every debt. All $180,000 gone. He bought a new car. He packed his apartment. He moved to a new city and exhaled for the first time in years. He thought it was over. He actually thought it was over. Priya had hired a private investigator 3 weeks after the funeral. She paid out of her own savings. She didn't tell anyone. Together they pulled on every thread they could find. Phone records, bank records, the insurance policy. And that's when they found it, Marcus's name. Sole beneficiary. A policy Daniel had signed just 7 months before his death. Priya didn't sleep that night. She sat at her kitchen table and organized everything into a single folder. Every document, every note, every unanswered question. The next morning she called Detective Okafor and placed the folder on her desk. Okafor reopened the case, this time with a full team. They pulled Marcus's phone records, bank statements, and movement data for November 14th. And that's when the gas station footage came up. A gas station 2 miles from Daniel's apartment. 9:15 p.m. Marcus's face, captured clearly on the outdoor camera, buying gloves and cleaning supplies. The same night Daniel died, in a city Marcus claimed he was nowhere near. Then the traffic camera footage. His license plate, 3 blocks from Daniel's building. 11:43 p.m. The medical examiner had put time of death between 10 p.m. and midnight. Every lie Marcus had told the police placed him somewhere else that night. Every piece of footage placed him exactly where Daniel died. Marcus Webb was arrested on February 4, 2022, 14 months after Daniel Hayes died. When detectives walked him into the interrogation room and placed the footage on the table, he looked at it for a long time. Then he went completely silent. His lawyer asked for a break. When they came back into the room, Marcus was crying. But these weren't the tears of a man who felt sorry for what he'd done. These were the tears of a man who finally understood it was over. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The prosecution laid out every piece of evidence in sequence: the policy, the motive, the footage, the lies, the money. Everything Marcus had built, dismantled one exhibit at a time. The defense argued circumstantial evidence, that the footage proved location, not guilt, that the insurance policy was legitimate, that grief doesn't make someone a murderer. The jury didn't need long. 8 hours of deliberation. Then they came back. Guilty. Murder in the first degree. The room exhaled. Priya, sitting in the front row of the gallery, closed her eyes. Marcus Webb was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He was let out of that courtroom in handcuffs, and he didn't look back. Daniel Hayes was 32 years old. He had a trip to Portugal planned. He had a whole life ahead of him. And the man who took that from him, the man who cried at his funeral, who spoke about their childhood, who accepted his money and his trust and his loyalty, is now spending the rest of his days behind bars. Greed is a slow poison. It doesn't come for you all at once. It whispers. It rationalizes. It tells you that just one more line is okay to cross. Until you've crossed a line, there is no coming back from. Daniel trusted Marcus with his life, literally. And Marcus turned that trust into a weapon. If there is any comfort in this story, it's that Priya never stopped fighting for her brother. And the truth never stopped fighting either. Rest in peace, Daniel. This one was for you. If this story moved you, subscribe. A new story drops every day.